What's up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of volleyball to discuss as the SEC tournament is underway and almost nearing its conclusion as we have one team punched its ticket to the championship. Who will join that other team? Also, how about Utah pulling off the upset over Kansas? Can the little red engine named Utah make it to the NCAA tournament? They're getting close, that's for sure. Also, how about the ending to the Big West Conference regular season as UC Irvine takes the final spot in the Big West Conference Championship? Unfortunately, there will be one team that will not be partaking due to an unfortunate ending in the final day of the regular season. Also, how about Mater Dei winning the CIS State Open Division Championship? Who did they beat, and how did they get past Pierre King? And how about Harvard Wesley winning the CIS State Division I Championship? They're partying like it's 2021. Champion Volleyball, Set Connect, because I'm about to take up some volleyball action here on Set Point. Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way in episode 326 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on YouTube, X, and on Twitch. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on X and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. Also, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. We would greatly appreciate it. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers, and with your help, we could definitely make it happen. So please, 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 if you haven't already, do subscribe to IE Sports Radio. It would mean the world to us. Also, make sure to check out all of our shows, and also check out pretty much IE Sports Radio on social media as well. And for the last 11 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, like I pretty much did this past weekend, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to our two sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. So without any further delay, let's get on in to what our sponsors are all about. I will see you in a little bit. Hold on for one quick second. Yeah, I'll see you.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon. but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows and definitely check out our two sponsors. We appreciate them for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And the way you can follow SetPoint on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie, and on TikTok at set_point.ie as well. Unfortunately, I forgot to update my X, or I forgot to update TikTok, so unfortunately, I'll have to get right on that pretty much after this. You can also follow SetPoint on Instagram as well at set_point.iesr. That's where I've been mainly posting my content. And you can also follow me personally on X as well at Teran Rodriguez 1. So before I get on into this, just got to do one quick thing really quick. So I'll be right back in a little bit. There we go. All right, just need to adjust my camera for a bit. But yeah, follow SetPoint on X and TikTok at set_point.ie and on Instagram at set_point.iesr. All right, now let's recap some NCAA women's volleyball action. So week 13, hard to believe we're already in week 13. I just got to say, it was quite the eventful week just because there were automatic qualifiers that were punched and there were conference tournaments that happened and gone. And then there were some teams that unfortunately fell this past week. So the main action started on Wednesday. I know there were some matches on Tuesday, i.e., aka some conference tournament, and also a Big West Conference match between Long Beach State and UC San Diego, and then the Summit League and whatnot. But Wednesday is what really kicked off the action. So we got to get into the main one. The elephant in the room when it came to that day, Utah taking down number 13 Kansas in straight sets. That was a massive win for Utah. They actually came into the week under 500, so that was a little bit of a concern in my opinion. And they were kind of a bubble team. They were on the bubble in terms of making the NCAA tournament. They had a good RPI, but it wouldn't mean anything if they were under 500 because you have to be 500 or better to receive an at-large spot or to apply for an at-large spot. So Utah needed to win, pretty much win out, and they were able to do so as Cameron Gibaut Gabadlo led the way for Utah with 18 kills, while Emery Moai also added 13 kills. Utah's team, they hit 252, which was very nice. And they had 59 digs compared to Kansas's 46. Even though they did get out-blocked, they held Kansas to only a hitting percentage of 188, which is pretty nice. Only allowed one ace and forced them into 9 service errors. So a very good win for Utah, as Kansas didn't have one player that cracked double digits in terms of kills, as Rhiannon Swanson led the way with 9 kills, followed by 8 kills from Grace Nelson, and Aisha Iono added 7 kills. So my takeaway for Utah is this: they needed this win the worst way, and they were able to get it. And that's why they're able to, and honestly, their desperation, I thought, was on full display. And they were pretty much playing for a spot. This was pretty much the beginning of their playoffs, and Utah was able to show their toughness and their bravado. And the third set did get a little dicey, but Utah was able to squeak away with that third set. I think they wound up winning the last 3 points of the set, breaking a 22-22 tie. So Utah winning that match was so huge, just because it bumped their RPI to, I think, in the top 50. I think they were 52, and now I think they're somewhere in like the 40s and whatnot, if not maybe higher than that. But for Kansas, this was a very, very tough loss. Bad time to lose, considering Kansas is kind of on the bubble of being a host for the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament, and they knew they could ill afford a loss. And unfortunately for them, they wound up losing. And now this week is kind of the week where they're going to be either teetering toward for hosting in the first couple rounds, or just being on the outside looking in terms of hosting in the first couple rounds and being that 17th seed overall. So yeah, it was a tough loss for Kansas, but Utah was able to pull off that win, and I think Utah makes a strong case of making the NCAA tournament, but it's a wait and see process. They still got spoiler alert: Utah did win its second match this past week, so they have 2 matches. They're 14-13. If they can win at least one more match, then they are a lock for at least a spot as an at-large. But if they lose out, then they are DONE. I think they have BYU and Texas Tech to close off the regular season, which BYU is going to be tough just because rivalry match and whatnot. Texas Tech will be interesting, but we shall see. I think it's either Texas Tech or Cincinnati, but we'll see. Jumping to the Big Ten, we had Wisconsin sweeping Purdue. After the first set, which was won in tight fashion, where Wisconsin wound up winning it 26-24, Wisconsin pretty much rolled through most of the match. After they won set 1, it was pretty much smooth sailing for Wisconsin. And since they won that third set, I know this. The fans get cheese curds, which is pretty nice, and they also sing as well. As you probably don't know, I've never been to a Wisconsin women's volleyball match in Wisconsin, so I don't know any of this. Anyway, Wisconsin's offense was pretty balanced. Mimi Collier and Una Vahajic led the way with 10 kills. Carter Booth and Grace Egan both had 9 kills, and Alicia Andrew added 8 kills. So that's a very good night for Wisconsin offensively, especially since they're hitting .311. Charlie Furbringer, who just is really aiding well now that she's back for Wisconsin. She had 38 assists and 10 digs. Overall, it was just a great win for Wisconsin. Got tight in the first set, but they were able to turn the tide following that, as Purdue was led by Akasha Anderson, who had 10 kills. Kenna Woolard added 7 kills, as well as Grace Heaney. Purdue as a team, they had 184. They had 0 service aces, only had 3 blocks as a team, and they only had 39 digs, which will not get the job done. Wisconsin, on the other hand, they had 4 aces. They had 6 blocks as a team. So overall for Wisconsin, I think this is definitely going to put them as a lock for hosting in the first couple of rounds. So I think this was a big-time win. So I think Wisconsin needed this win. They needed to prove themselves, and they were able to do so. So a great win for Wisconsin. Tough one for Purdue, but hey, that's kind of what happens. You got to win on the road. And if you can't win on the road, then I don't know if we could put you in the title or in the category of title contender. But Purdue, like I've mentioned in years past, they have shattered expectations. So I think Purdue's still having a great season. I just think that, unfortunately for them, that they just kind of had a little bit of a clunker match following set one. So, excuse me, one sec. Sorry, nose was a little itchy. But anyway, this matchup moving on and staying within the Big Ten realm, I actually talked about this matchup being such a sneaky good matchup, and this one was indeed a good matchup. It was number 16 USC playing at Oregon. Now, a lot of lore when it came to this, or not lore, but a lot of fun facts right here. So going into this match, USC had not won at Oregon since 2019, and also going into this match, USC had not won the 2-game series over Oregon since 2015. Oregon was pretty much fighting for their NCAA tournament lives, and this was kind of a big match for both of them. USC needed the win in order to host the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament or keep that dream alive, while Oregon needed to make a case to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large. USC was able to pull off the win in 4 sets. The first set felt like an eternity as Oregon took that first set 33-31. Second set, it looked kind of grim for USC, but they were able to rally back and win that second set 28-26. Same can be said for set 3. USC wound up winning it 28-26, and then USC was able to get the early jump in set 4, never looked back as they wound up winning set 4 25-19. The women of Troy were led by London Weejay, who had 17 kills. This girl had herself a big game, and I think she needed to. Mia Taverdi, she added 13 kills. And keep in mind, Taverdi actually used to attend Oregon before transferring to USC. So this was kind of a Mia Taverdi legacy game. And then Leah Ford added 9 kills along with 7 blocks. And then Adania Falmuina and Abigail Mullen both had 8 kills. Weejay also led USC in the dig department with 14 as USC hit 236. They also had 11.5 blocks and 8 service aces, which was pretty good if you ask me. Oregon hit 226, which wasn't bad, and they had 9 blocks, which was also pretty good. But here's where they really struggled. Oregon missed a whopping 20 serves. I was just looking at this match. I'm thinking to myself, Oregon is really hurting themselves missing a bunch of these serves. And some of these serves they really wanted back just because I think they missed so many serves in bad moments. It's like every time Oregon built momentum, they gave it back to USC off of service error. And what's worse is that Oregon had themselves a big match courtesy of Alana Clemente, who had 24 kills, which was pretty darn good if you ask me. And I couldn't believe how talented this girl was. I knew she was doing great guns for the Ducks, but something to also note is that she's only a freshman, and I didn't even know this. She was committed to Rutgers before flipping her commitment to Oregon. So that's kind of your Snapple fun fact right there. So yeah, it's kind of it's unfortunate for Oregon because you really can't afford to give a team like USC a free points. And this was something I was concerned about. It's like, how's Oregon? Because I thought Oregon was going to be a little bit better than that. And they looked good in the first set. Second set, I think they could have won. It's just that USC had that scrappiness to them. And I also admit there was a little bit of a questionable missed lift call, but it should never get to the point where Oregon needs to bank on the officials or missed calls to win matches. So anyway, Oregon also had 12 kills from Sophia Myers and 12 kills from Valentina Valette. So look, this is a tough loss for Oregon. They really needed this match in order to make a strong case to win, to make it to the NCAA tournament. Because spoiler alert, they did lose to Michigan I think it was yesterday. So now it gets dicey for Oregon because their last 2 matches are Rutgers and Maryland, which don't really do their RPI a whole lot of favors. As Jay Grover says, SC going to host a round, hopefully. Oh, you and me both. this is what I'm also hoping for. I'm hoping USC can host the first couple rounds, but they're in a good position. So thank you, Jake Grovert, for popping into the chat room. That's something I should also mention. So USC, I guess I should also mention that USC did wind up sweeping Illinois. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't expecting a sweep because USC had been really dicey when it came to some of these decent opponents. And Illinois was fighting for their NCAA tournament lives. Now, in the defense of Illinois, they did lose a 5-setter to UCLA the same night USC, or actually, I think it was Thursday. But regardless, Illinois did lose a 5-set heartbreaker on the road to UCLA. So I guess Illinois was kind of dragging while USC was coming off of a nice road win over Oregon. But I will also counter that claim and say this. USC was coming off of a loss to Nebraska, which there's no shame in losing to. And then Oregon was coming off of a massive win against Purdue, number 9 Purdue, or then number 9 Purdue. And the fact that that USC was able to pull off that win on the road is pretty darn impressive. So I too am hopeful that USC can host the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament. Their last 2 matches this week are on the road against Michigan, which I know that's going to be a tough one, and then on the road against Michigan State. I imagine USC beating Michigan should lock up a top 16 seed for USC. If they split this week, then it becomes 50-50. I think it becomes dicey for USC to host. I can't imagine, just because their resume speaks to high volumes, and USC is winning these matches, and they have 22 wins on the season. They have 22 wins, and they're starting 3 freshmen: Taylor Deckert, Abigail Mullen, and Reese Messer. And also, you got to remember, they're starting 2 redshirt sophomores in Leah Ford and London Weejay. Like, their only 2 seniors are Famuina and Gala Trubin, which Trubin isn't really a pin hitter, but she does spark up the team with her serves and whatnot and her defensive effort. So, yeah, I can confirm that Trubin doesn't really dig. So, or Trubin doesn't swing the ball. And Brad Keller did debunk that theory. So USC, all they just need is to win their last 2 matches. It's simple. You win and you're hosting the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. And I would like nothing more for that, just because personally I would like to attend that as well. So anyway, that's pretty much USC in a nutshell. They're in a very good position. I mean, it's so tough for me to say that they won't host. It's just that a win over Michigan would just clinch it. It should clinch it, but crazier things have happened in bracketology, and I'm no bracketologist. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of the Big Ten, Nebraska locked up the Big Ten, at least a share of the Big Ten crown, on Thursday when they swept Iowa. Spoiler alert, they swept Indiana on Saturday to lock up the outright crown. I can't imagine Nebraska's not going to be the number 1 seed. I mean, they still have to win out, but they make a strong case to be the number 1 overall seed of the NCAA tournament, just because Nebraska is just on a tear. I know they had that one set loss to UCLA, where they eventually wound up winning in 4. But let's be honest, UCLA is a good team, even though they have 10+ losses. Like, UCLA is not indicative of what their record shows, but I digress. Moving on. So, speaking of teams on the bubble of hosting the NCAA tournament, this team did not get any favors of hosting in the NCAA tournament or this past week, as North Carolina wound up losing, or number 15 North Carolina wound up losing to Florida State in 4. And Florida State was kind of that bubble team where they were vying for an NCAA tournament spot, and they needed some sort of like statement win. And North Carolina I was kind of thinking somewhere in the back of my mind, if Florida State does win this, they have a chance, but this is the week to hopefully pull off a win. And Florida State did that, as the Noles were led by Ian Hankey, who had 23 kills, while Kylene Filmua added 14 kills, as well as 10 digs. As a team, Florida State, this was kind of the glaring stat. Well, they had 2 glaring stats. They hit 353, which is like, goodness me. And then they only missed 2 serves. Oregon, take notes. I'm kidding. And then Florida State also had 7 service aces, and then they also had 59 digs along with 10 blocks, which is like, man, that's pretty good if you ask me. North Carolina, they had only 225. They were led by Chelsea Thorpe, who had 16 kills, and Safi Hampton added 12 kills. Look, North Carolina did not get a whole lot of help this week. They didn't do themselves any favors in terms of hosting in the first couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament, because Sunday they wound up losing. Yeah, I think it was Sunday they lost to Miami, which is like, there's no shame in losing that, but to lose to Florida State is kind of iffy. I get it. It was on the road, but North Carolina had been pretty solid throughout most of this season. Speaking of teams that didn't do themselves any favors, number 13, Kansas not only lost to Utah, but they also lost to BYU on the road in straight sets as well. Number 25, BYU. Now, BYU kind of needed to make a statement. That's because I feel their hopes of hosting in the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament have sailed. But at the same time, it's like BYU, I think, needed to really prove themselves just because they hadn't really been impressive. And I hate to have to skewer stats. Going into, I think, this last weekend, they did not win a match in October. So they changed that with their 2 wins, which I thought was pretty darn good. BYU was led by Sully Davis, who had 15 kills. Claire Little Chambers added 13 kills. This was another glaring stat. BYU hit 416. Even though they only had 27 digs, they were just on one, which, man, BYU, if they play like this, they can be a scary team in the tournament. But you could say that about a lot of teams. Kansas was led by Ryan Swanson, who had 11 kills. Kansas hit 276, which wasn't terrible, but they only had 1 ace and missed 11 serves. And they only had 23 digs, too. So it felt like this was the match where defense wasn't really played a whole lot. So overall for BYU, this was a nice morale booster of a win. But, man, Kansas, you're about to see that Kansas is pretty much on the bubble in terms of hosting the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament. But I'm a little surprised Kansas looked so flat last week. I mean, I get it. Winning on the road is tough. BYU or Smith Fieldhouse is a tough place to win at. It's also tough to win at Utah in Salt Lake City just because Utah was fighting for its NCAA tournament lives. But it's like, in a week where you're supposed to prove yourselves, that was not proving yourself. So Kansas has to prove themselves this week, or they better make travel plans to the number 16 seed, which I won't spoil who that is right away. Speaking of Big 12 upsets, we had Cincinnati, another bubble team, upsetting number 21 Colorado in straight sets. Now, this was a solid win for the Bearcats. I thought Cincinnati played some solid ball. They held Colorado to only 105, which that doesn't really win you a whole lot of matches if you're the Buffs. But Cincinnati, on the other hand, they wound up hitting 409 as the Bearcats were led by Sydney Nolan, who had 19 kills. Carly Glenning, she had 13 kills as well. So all in all for Cincinnati, I thought Glendingen. Yeah. Anyway, Cincinnati as a team, they looked really good offensively. I was quite impressed by them. I can't imagine that this was a prove yourself as an at-large team. Colorado, I'm just going to say this. They've kind of been a little up and down. I mean, they start off the season really good, especially in non-conference play. They finally earned the respect that they deserved in terms of being ranked. However, this match didn't do them any favors. I mean, they're still having a great year overall. Maria Splowska and Sydney Jordan led the way for Colorado, both having 8 kills. But hitting 105 doesn't really do you much favors. And they only had 1 ace on the night. So, yeah, that wasn't all that great if you ask me. But I think that's just the beauty of the Big 12. Anyone can beat anybody on any given night. And I gotta give a shout out to my boy Marcus. Love's great. He says, salute. Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate you. Anyway, so Saturday, as I mentioned, Nebraska locked up the Big 10 championship outright as they swept Indiana. USC, like I mentioned, they swept Illinois. That was a great week for them overall. Creighton swept Marquette in the Big East Conference semifinals, which was nice. I mean, always good to beat your rival, especially since Marquette was hosting the tournament. And then we had a little bit of a close one. We had number 20 TCU outlasting Texas Tech in 5. Look, I think that going to 5 pretty much seals their fate of not hosting in the first couple of rounds. I mean, last week they went 0 for 2. They were able to get back on track, but honestly, I don't think TCU will be hosting. And it sucks because TCU does make a compelling argument. Also, we had VCU sweeping Dayton, which believe that was in the semifinals of their tournament, the A-Sun tournament, A-10 tournament. Either way, Dayton went undefeated in conference play, and then they wound up losing in the semifinals of their conference tournament, which was very surprising. I mean, that conference right there is going to be a bid stealer. Spoiler alert, Loyola Chicago wound up winning the conference tournament overall. So there you have it right there. And then jumping over to Sunday, we didn't really have too much notable matchups, notable results. There was this notable result. We had Miami sweeping number 15 North Carolina, which I thought was a very good win for the Canes. And I think they're making a strong case to hosting the first couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament. The Canes were led by, obviously, Flo Marie Heredia-Colon, who had 23 kills. She had over half the kills that Miami had as a team, which was very nice. The Canes also hit 295. They had 7 aces, even though they missed 13 serves. And they had 10 blocks. And North Carolina, on the other hand, they only had 7 blocks, only 28 digs. Serving wasn't too bad, 5 aces to only 6 service errors. But their hitting percentage was just hideous. They only hit .49, so 0.049 is what North Carolina hit, as they, just like the previous match, they didn't have – oh, no, they did have a player in double digits in terms of kills. But this match, it was – their kills were balanced, but their kill leader was Larry Smith, who had 6 kills, while 3 other players had 5 kills for North Carolina. So this week did not do – North Carolina any favors in terms of hosting in the first couple rounds. I'll have to check who they face. We'll check who they face in a little bit, but honestly, it just felt like they left a lot of meat on the bone. So now that that's pretty much that for the main part of the NCAA Women's Volleyball Week 13. Now I want to talk some Big West Conference. So I really wanted to go to Saturday I went to UC Irvine's match against Cal Poly. It was their senior day. Yes, senior day, not senior night, just because they had a men's basketball game later on. So the Big West Conference race was quite the dramatic one. So it boiled down. There were only 2 spots remaining in the Big West Conference Championship, and it boiled down to CSUN, Hawaii, and UC Irvine. So Friday, UC Irvine lost to UC Santa Barbara in 5. It was tied 13-13 in set 5, but eventually the Gauchos wound up winning the 5th set 16-14. And that was probably a gut punch for UC Irvine, because eventually they saw Hawaii take down UC San Diego in 4. So now Hawaii was in the driver's seat. All they needed was to either beat Long Beach State or UC Irvine to lose to Cal Poly. And UC Irvine didn't even have 24 hours of rest or 24 hours of pretty much getting over the loss. They needed to go into their match against Cal Poly. No Terraflex, by the way. And they needed to win. It was either UC Irvine wins and Hawaii loses, and then UC Irvine makes it, or Hawaii gets the 6th seed. Turns out UC Irvine really showed that their overall record was not indicative of who they were, as UC Irvine swept Cal Poly 25-23, 25-23, and 25-11. So the first set, I actually arrived a little late, but I did get, when I arrived, it was 17-17. Cal Poly went up 20-18, but then UC Irvine was able to turn the tide, eventually take that first set Same can be said for the second set. The second set was kind of the same thing, except Irvine had the lead and fended off Cal Poly to take that second set. And then the third set, UC Irvine was just clicking on all cylinders, and then Cal Poly, I just felt, was demoralized. And eventually, I've never seen UC Irvine play that great. I mean, this was clearly their most complete effort of the season, because Cal Poly came into this one 23-5, while Irvine came into the match 12-17. But I knew deep inside my mind that UC Irvine was a much better team than what their record indicated. Just because they lost Kendra McDonald to a torn ACL, they had a bunch of other players that were shelved. So they had to bank on some of their underclassmen, like Madison Triplett, who is not even that tall, but she's I think she's like 5'9" or so, but she was able to lead UC Irvine in kills with 12 while adding 11 digs. UC Irvine had 62 digs. Well, although Cal Poly had 61 of their own, but still, they limited Cal Poly's block to only 4 while posting 6 of their own. They had 6 aces, them being UC Irvine, 6 aces while only missing 3 serves. As a team, even though UC Irvine only hit 167, they held Cal Poly to 125, which I thought was pretty good. Chloe LeLuge led the way for Cal Poly with 10 kills, while Emma Frederick added 9 kills. Kendall Bashir also added 8 kills. I will say this for Cal Poly: it's better they lost this match as opposed to losing in the Big West Conference Championships, aka its conference tournament. But for UC Irvine, they pretty much were on life support with that win. I mean, they pretty much had to play the waiting game with Long Beach State, as they needed to see Long Beach beat UC Irvine. And for those that don't know, Long Beach State and UC Irvine are bitter rivals. They're black and blue rivals. So it felt a little bit of a bad taste in the mouth of UC Irvine, but they needed to win. They needed to see Long Beach State win. Otherwise, they wouldn't make the Big West Conference Championship, which would have been a little bit of a bummer. But it is what it is sometimes, just because you got to take your lumps. And fortunately for UC Irvine, they did see Long Beach State take down Hawaii. I was a little skeptical of this match just because Long Beach playing in Hawaii, I didn't even know Long Beach's last win in Hawaii was 2020 or 2015. So it had been 10 years since Long Beach had last won in Hawaii. So the fact that they were able to do so, and they had no intention of resting starters. If they were not going to spite, UC Irvine and say, or actually it was 2014. So first win in Honolulu since 2014. So I was off by 1 year, but still, having beaten Hawaii on the road, that's still pretty good. Even though Hawaii's record doesn't say it, winning at Hawaii is big. It's a big momentum booster, as Long Beach was led by Logan King, who had 18 kills. Rhiann Sheffy, this girl, I think, is drastically improving her game, and she's coming up big. And she, being a senior, she really stepped up. She had 15 kills. She hit 480, and she also had 6 blocks. So Sheffy, I thought, was impressive. Even though on the Spectrum Hawaii / ESPN Plus broadcast, they gave Logan King player of the game, I would have given Rhiann Sheffy player of the match. Just because Sheffy, I thought, really stepped up. And King was also good. She had 359. She had 10 digs as well. And she also had 3 blocks. But honestly, I think Sheffy has come a long way. I mean, she used to be kind of that, I wouldn't say the bench warmer, but kind of the cheerleader on the bench and the hype girl. But now she's hyping up her team on the court, which I think is pretty awesome. Long Beach also got 7 kills each from Elisa Gee and Sydney Hamaker. As a team, Long Beach State hit 241. They had 7 aces and only missed 3 serves, which that's going to help them win a lot of matches. If they play like that, Long Beach could actually win its conference tournament. For Hawaii, this was such a tough end to their season. They were led by Bree Gunderson, who had 16 kills. I said on X that if Hawaii can feed its middles, they would have success against Long Beach State. And that was kind of the game plan. That was kind of the scouting report. Feed the middle, feed the middle, feed the middle. They also got 14 kills from Tyla Reese Main, and they also got 13 kills from Chile Reed and 8 kills from the other middle blocker, Miliana Sylvester. But Hawaii only hit 213. They missed 12 serves. They were really shooting themselves in the foot with a bunch of these errors and mistakes. And I feel Hawaii was such a better team than what tonight or that night indicated. And you also got to remember, Hawaii did not have Taylor Hawkes, who was out for the season, as well as I'm blanking on the other girl, but it was another one of their top players, and she was out for the year as well. And Chile Reed also got dinged up in the match, though she did continue. So overall, this was just one of those tough years for Hawaii. It's the first time missing the NCAA tournament, not including the COVID year, but first time missing the NCAA tournament since 1992. And it's also the first time they did not finish above 500. So unfortunately, it's just a tough year for Hawaii. And this was their last year in the Big West Conference, just because they're moving on to the Mountain West Conference. But I could definitely see Hawaii and Long Beach State continuing their rivalry. Now, how will they balance it out in terms of going to with how will they balance it out with Hawaii hosting and Long Beach hosting? Will they just have Long Beach hosting twice a year and then Hawaii hosting twice a year and vice versa each and every year? But I digress. Anyway, but yeah, it was a tough end for the season for Hawaii, as they put themselves in a great position on Friday, but then Saturday they unfortunately wound up it just wasn't their night. And losing that third set really hurt them, just because they had such an amazing point. And it was 22-22. It looked like Long Beach had hit the ball long, but the ball was touched off of a Hawaii block. And then Hawaii wound up winning the most dramatic point ever, tying it up at 23-23. But then Hawaii misses the serve into the net to give Long Beach State set point at 24-23. And then Tatum Hoff, who also was another senior, she had a service ace to clinch the third set for Long Beach State. And I think that was kind of the set that sucked all the momentum out of Hawaii. And that was pretty much that. And like I said, it sucks because Hawaii is a much better team than what their record indicated. They're a much better team than what that match indicated. But that's the life in the big city. And you're probably wondering, why did Hawaii and UC Irvine tie, and who has the tiebreaker? Well, UC Irvine and Hawaii met one another only once this year, and UC Irvine wound up beating Hawaii in the head-to-head. So seeing as that was their only head-to-head match, UC Irvine had the head-to-head over Hawaii, and that's why UC Irvine got the tiebreaker over Hawaii. So UC Irvine is the last team in the Big West Conference Championships, while Hawaii, unfortunately, will be missing the postseason, which really it really sucks, just because, in my honest opinion, Hawaii making the NCAA tournament is good for NCAA women's volleyball, just because it brings in revenue. But unfortunately, that won't be the case. And I think Hawaii fans would have flocked to the pyramid, even if they knew that Hawaii was going to have an uphill climb against, UC Santa Barbara, which now was not the case, because Long Beach State's win actually helps them out because they actually jumped to being the 3 seed. I thought they would be the 4 seed regardless, but them being the 3 seed means they'll face UC Irvine. So Long Beach State beats Hawaii, helps UC Irvine make the Big West Conference tournament. And now Long Beach State and UC Irvine have to clash with one another in the first round of said conference tournament. So the other tournament spot went to CSUN, which, because UC Irvine wound up losing to UC Santa Barbara on Friday, CSUN, regardless of what happened on Thursday, they wound up making the Big West Conference tournament as the 5 seed. They lost to UC Davis in 5 on Thursday, and then they needed 5 to beat UC Riverside. So I'm a little interested to see what CSUN's going to do when they face UC Santa Barbara. I mean, Santa Barbara's coming off of a off of a win over Cal State Fullerton. So we'll see what Santa Barbara can do. And I think Santa Barbara would benefit off winning a few matches in the conference tournament, because they're also a bubble team, considering their RPI is the highest of all the Big West Conference teams. But I don't think Santa Barbara wants to leave that up to chance. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, that's that for the entirety of week number 13 of the NCAA women's volleyball season. So let's move on to the AVCA Terraflex Division I women's volleyball poll. So not a whole lot changed. Indiana and USC were kind of the high risers, going up 2 spots. No one dropped out of the top 25, though we did see Kansas tumble down, as well as North Carolina. Kansas is number 16, which means they better hope for their sake they don't lose along the way. So there you have it. That's pretty much your AVCA Terraflex Division I women's volleyball poll for this week. I imagine the last poll will be next Monday, and then after that it'll be NCAA tournament time. So we shall have to wait and see. But anyway, week number 14 of the NCAA women's volleyball season is underway. It's the last week of the regular season before Selection Sunday. So happening right now is Texas and Texas A&M. Apparently they are in set number 3, where it's tied 1-1, which I think is pretty cool if you ask me. That's actually the semifinals of the SEC tournament, and I probably should have made an SEC bracket, but knowing my luck, I probably would be wrong, but I digress. Anyway, it looks like A&M is off to a 14-7. Oh, no. No, I don't know. I'm not going to look at the score right away. All I'm just seeing is that it's 1-1. I'm not going to look at the live score right away. But earlier in the SEC semifinals, in the first semifinal, we had number 2 Kentucky taking down Tennessee in 4 sets, which I thought was a pretty good win for the Wildcats. I mean, Tennessee is kind of on the bubble of hosting, as you could see right here. Tennessee had climbed up after seeing North Carolina tumble a bit, but Tennessee losing against Kentucky doesn't do them any favors. Had they won, I think you can make an argument for Tennessee hosting in the first couple rounds. Unfortunately, Tennessee, I mean, they'll need to get some help along the way in order for them to host in the first couple rounds. But Texas A&M, I could see that going 5, and we all got to remember that Texas A&M did beat Texas in 5 in their only meeting. So I'm going to be really interested in that. Anyway, so some notable matches for this week. You've got on Wednesday, number 7 Louisville at number 4 Pitt. That's going to be the de facto matchup for the ACC crown. That's going to be a real good one. Georgia Tech Stanford will be sneaky good. Number 11, Purdue at number 19, Minnesota, should be a fun one. Well, actually, once again, the NCAA doesn't update their rankings. Minnesota is not number 19. They are 20, I believe. But regardless, it's ranked on rank between Minnesota and Purdue. Kansas is at Iowa State. Oh, man, if there's ever a match where Kansas has to win, it's that one. If they don't win that one, if they lose to Iowa State, they can kiss hosting the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament goodbye, just because I feel that might be the nail in the coffin. I mean, Iowa State has proven themselves pretty darn good, but I just think that for the sake of them of guaranteeing them spot as a top 16 seed, they have to win that one. And then I said that USC played Michigan, then Michigan State. That was a mistake on my behalf. They faced Michigan State on Wednesday, and then they faced Michigan on Friday. So the Michigan one is going to be big, but they can't overlook Michigan State. I just think that beating Michigan State will have significance. I think beating Michigan State is also beneficial. I mean, both of them have pretty high RPIs, mostly Michigan, not Michigan State, but still. Baylor TCU is also a pretty solid matchup. The holy war between Utah and BYU at Smith Fieldhouse is going to be fun times as well. So you have that right there. Miami hosting NC State. I don't see Miami losing. It's just that if they lose, that kind of jeopardizes some of their chances of hosting the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament, but we shall see. Then Wisconsin at Northwestern. Look, Northwestern is an interesting team. I don't think they're going to make the NCAA tournament, but they could probably make it interesting on the committee. I mean, Northwestern, I don't think they'll beat Wisconsin, but you never know with a team like that. Then you've also got number 25 Penn State at Nebraska, which Nebraska, I bet you if they win that one, they should have the number 1 overall seed locked up. Then you got Wisconsin at Minnesota for the border battle. You've got Friday USC at Michigan, which that right there is going to feed families. If USC wins, I guarantee you they're in as a top 16 seed. And they also got to make arrangements to try to attend said first couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament at USC, but we'll have to wait and see. Saturday, you've got a really good one. You've got Indiana at Purdue, which is going to be a fun one. You got Stanford at Louisville, another fun one. Then you've got Miami at North Carolina round 2. This time it's going to be held in North Carolina. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. So if North Carolina already knows Miami's kinks, the big key for North Carolina is, can they slow down Flo Marie Heredia-Colon? Probably not. But if they win that matchup and then Miami somehow loses to NC State, then it gets interesting for the Tar Heels. Is this the match? So for North Carolina and for like Kansas, it's not a matter of if they're going to be hosting or if they're going to make the NCAA tournament. It's a matter of where they're going to be at. So again, it's a wait and see process. Indiana, they're at Illinois. So that's another interesting matchup. But Illinois, look, I like Chris Tomas. I think Illinois is a respectable team. But this is kind of the problem with the Illini. The fact that they lost at UCLA, they lost at USC, I think is kind of bringing in the dark de facto that it might be it for them. I mean, even if Illinois wins against Indiana and Northwestern this week, I don't think it's any guarantee they make the big dance. I mean, it's always kind of been that. I mean, Illinois has kind of always been that team where they're good and then they always lose a few matches here and there, and then it winds up biting them in the butt, which leaves them out of the NCAA tournament. And then everyone's like, oh, Illinois should have made the tournament. Well, they shouldn't have lost a bunch of games. So there you have it. And then Mikey Two Guns pops in the chat room. He says, salute. Thank you, Mikey. I appreciate you. But okay. But yeah, that's going to be interesting for North Carolina. Like, North Carolina is also at Virginia, which they should probably win. No, on Wednesday as well. All right, but that is pretty much that right there. I guess we should go over the automatic qualifiers for the NCAA tournament, as we're getting close to there. I think 31 spots. Well, I forgot how many automatic qualifiers have been punched in. It's quite a bit though. But there's still a lot of time left for certain teams. But looking at this automatic qualifier list, here it is. So teams that have already clinched, 23 out of 31 teams have clinched an automatic qualifier. So you've got UMBC, Tulsa, Central Arkansas, Loyola Chicago, Creighton, High Point, Nebraska, Arizona State, which wound up winning the Big 12 conference, which was great. Campbell out of the CAA, Western Kentucky, Wright State, Princeton, Toledo, Fairfield, Coppin State, LIU. The Sharks are going dancing again. Nice. American, Wofford, Stephen F. Austin, Arkansas State, Florida A&M, Utah Valley, and San Diego. Something to note about San Diego. This is probably the best kept secret from the NCAA, and I know they're not as good as their team from, I think, 2 or 3 years ago when they made the Final Four, but they've won 16 straight matches. They were the second team. Technically, they were the first team to punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament, but Nebraska was technically that first team just because Nebraska had the tiebreaker over Wisconsin. San Diego did clinch its a conference outright the same night Nebraska clinched the automatic qualifier, but that's what I say. I don't care what the NCAA said. End of discussion. So, all right, but that is pretty much that for NCAA Women's Volleyball Week 14. We're actually going to circle the wagons back to this on the other side of the commercial break, but when we come back, I'll be getting into my predictions for the Big West Conference Championships and who will win said conference championships. We also have some high school girls volleyball to recap and a little bit of some high school girls volleyball. I actually was thinking of going over the MLV draft, but since there's a lot of volleyball to discuss, especially with like the NCAA Division II tournament that was just released, and then the NCAA Division III tournament that's down to the final 8. I'm going to skip the MLV for next week, but keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Hello everyone, my name is Daryl Kinsey Jr. and I'm welcoming you to take another lap with the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. Yes, this is the Extra Mile with me and my co-hosts Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. We talk everything racing from NASCAR to IndyCar to Formula One to limited hydroplanes, endurance racing, the NHRA, and more. So come join us for an hour of great racing talk and a lot of fun as well on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 8 p.m. only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows. And once again, thank you to our 2 sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. All right, let's continue on with a little bit more of some NCAA women's volleyball. So it's my favorite time of the year, the Big West Conference Championship. So there's going to be a new conference tournament champion crowned, as unfortunately for Hawaii, they are missing the tournament. It sucks, but that's just life in the big city. So the Big West Conference Tournament Championships, or Big West Conference Championships, as it's properly vernacularly called. I like to call it the Big West Conference Tournament, but I digress. So the quarterfinals are, well, the whole tournament's going to be held at Long Beach State, and thankfully it's not going to be raining, so the tournament won't be moved to the gold mine. But the first round matchups are CSUN against UC Santa Barbara, and then UC Irvine versus Long Beach State. So UC Davis and Cal Poly are the top 2 seeds, the 1 and 2 seed respectfully, and they have a bye to the semifinals. So time for me to see if I can actually correctly predict the entire tournament. So I've correctly predicted the tournament the last 2 seasons. I don't like to brag, but it takes a lot of skill, especially the first year they had it when I predicted Long Beach to beat UC Santa Barbara. So I'm just saying. Anyway, so first matchup, you got CSUN versus UC Santa Barbara. All right, CSUN is making its first ever Big West Conference Championship debut, as Santa Barbara is back in the conference tournament after missing it last year by the thinnest of margins. That said, look, CSUN, I respect what they've done, and they've actually won double-digit conference matches for the first time since, I think, 2015. So it's been an incredible turnaround for the Matadors. I really respect what they've done. I think for CSUN, they deserve to be in the conference tournament. The fact that they beat in Hawaii, that was pretty good. The fact that they beat Long Beach at Long Beach is pretty darn impressive. Long Beach ought to be thanking their lucky stars they didn't draw CSUN in the first round, just because I feel they might have had, that's not a good matchup, but I digress. CSUN has definitely had themselves an incredible year. They've really turned it around, as they have a first-year head coach, by the way. That being said, UC Santa Barbara has Eva Travis, and she had herself a monster game. She had 30 kills against UC Irvine. And honestly, I just feel, and this is no disrespect to CSUN, I think Santa Barbara just has a lot of firepower on their team. I can't imagine the Gauchos losing this one. And I think CSUN can make it respectable, just because the 4-5 matchup is always a good matchup. Like, you saw the first year, UC Irvine and Long Beach State went 5. You saw the previous year, Long Beach State and UC San Diego went 4, where set 4 was pretty much a nail-biter. I think CSUN will challenge UC Santa Barbara, but in the end, I have the Gauchos taking down the Matadors, probably in 4 sets. And then we have the second quarterfinal matchup between UC Irvine and Long Beach State. So this has a lot of storylines. So remember how UC Irvine needed Long Beach State's help in order to make the Big West Conference Championships? Well, they got Long Beach State's help, and now the reward for UC Irvine, they get to play said Long Beach State. Now, I am a firm believer of what UC Irvine can do. They have some good players. Obviously, it's going to be tough for them, just because I feel they don't have the height that Long Beach State has. And not having Kendra McDonald really hurts. That being said, they do have arguably the best libero in the conference, being Campbell Jensen. She is just a workhorse, and more importantly, she's going to finish her career at least second all-time at UC Irvine. She's certainly not going to be finishing first, just because she would have to have like 20 digs in terms of the whole conference tournament, and then that would be implying that UC Irvine makes a deep run in the NCAA tournament. But I digress. But you also got to remember that UC Irvine is getting good contributions from Madison Triplett, who I think is definitely making a massive impact. Kendra Duffy is also a player to watch for on UC Irvine. The big thing for UC Irvine, if they run the middle, they have a chance. Long Beach State struggles when it comes to stopping the middle. That means they got to get players like Allie Bolden involved, as well as Lois Hansen or Elizabeth Miller, even though she hasn't really she got to see action against Cal Poly last Saturday. Not sure if that was a senior day thing, but UC Irvine has to run the middle. If they run the middle, they have a chance. If they don't run the middle, then it'll be interesting. Even that, all that being said, look, I like what UC Irvine's done. This is the second straight year they've just barely made the Big West Conference Championships. But that being said, Long Beach, I just think, has the answer for UC Irvine. I think this is not a good matchup for UC Irvine. I think Logan King is someone that's going to have her way. If Rian Sheffy continues to play like she has been playing, like she did against Davis, like she did against Hawaii, I think she'll be stepping up for Long Beach as well. You also got Sydney Hamaker, who has such a tough jump serve or topspin serve. I just think Long Beach State is going to beat UC Irvine. I see UC Irvine making this a match. I just don't think they have the horses to keep up with Long Beach. And that's no disrespect to the Anteaters. They are well coached. Ashley Hain does a great job with her program. And after UC Irvine beat Cal Poly, I wouldn't be surprised if UC Irvine gave Long Beach State fits. You got to remember that Irvine almost beat Long Beach in the Big West Conference Championships back 2 years ago. Unfortunately, Long Beach was able to outlast them in 5. And that was the year where Long Beach was injury plagued. But I digress. So yeah, I've got UC Santa Barbara outlasting CSUN, and then Long Beach State getting by UC Irvine. So that would mean the semifinals would be UC Davis versus UC Santa Barbara. Now, I am a firm believer of what Dan Connors and the Aggies can do. This is a really good UC Davis team. I really think that the Aggies are a good team, but I also think Santa Barbara, even though they needed 5 to beat UC Irvine and they needed overtime to win that 5th set, I think Santa Barbara is going to be really prepared. They run a 6-2 offense. That said, I think Davis inches by UC Santa Barbara. That's my intuition. I mean, Davis could probably blow the doors off of Santa Barbara, but honestly, I think UC Davis beats Santa Barbara. I think no matter who Davis draws in the semifinals, I think UC Davis will advance to the championship match in the Big West Conference tournament. But I think UC Davis has that it factor. They have probably the best middle blocker duo in the conference, or at least one of them. I really think that for UC Davis, they're out to prove the entire world that they belong in the NCAA tournament. Because you got to remember, UC Davis has never made the NCAA tournament in Division I. They've made the NCAA tournament in Division II, but never in Division I. So Davis is out for respect. So I got the Aggies outlasting the Gauchos. I'd probably say that's like a 4 or 5 set match. And then the other semifinal that I have in the Big West Conference Championship is Cal Poly versus Long Beach State. This one's going to be interesting. And I say that for multiple reasons. I say that just because Cal Poly, I thought, played maybe one of their worst matches of the season. There's only been one other team that swept Cal Poly in Big West Conference play, and that was UC San Diego, which that must be the lack of Mott magic. But this is my biggest concern for Cal Poly. Can they win outside of Mott Gymnasium? They were able to win against Cal State Fullerton, but against UC Irvine, that was kind of the combination of losing the first 2 sets in close fashion and then just being super demoralized in set 3 and pretty much saying we lost to the better team. This one's an interesting matchup, though. I feel this could go either way. I mean, I honestly think that both Long Beach and Cal Poly are good matchups for one another. But this is basically just like most of the Long Beach State opponents. As long as that their said team or that said team can feed the middle, I think Long Beach State they'll have success over Long Beach State. And Cal Poly, it's not just Kendall Bashir who is just really good. I think they have a lot of good talent. Their middle blocker talent is basically Chloe Lelouch, who I definitely think is I say that Davis has some of the best middle blocker duo in the Big West. I think Cal Poly's is just as good. I mean, Charlotte Kelly also, if she gets on the court, I think she also can make a contribution. And if you saw Long Beach State's first match against Cal Poly, I thought Cal Poly really ran the middle effectively. And I think they could definitely run the middle effectively against Long Beach State. And you got to remember that Cal Poly got off to such an awful start in the first two sets. They start off the first set really slow, and then the second set they kind of picked it up, and then they wound up losing that one. And then the third set they were down by as many as 6, managed to rally back and win the third set in overtime, only to lose the fourth set in close fashion as well. So that being said, what do I think about this matchup? This one I think is going to be the most intense matchup. I mean, look at Cal Poly's schedule. They haven't really had too many clunker matchups. They've only had 2 clunker matches overall. That was against UC San Diego, and that was against UC Irvine. But that was the UC Irvine loss was probably because Irvine was desperate to make the NCAA tournament, and it was not NCAA tournament, their Big West Conference tournament, and they wanted to send their seniors off with at least one more win. The last time these two teams played at Long Beach beat them in 4, but at the same time, it's like I think Cal Poly did not play bad. I just think that the first 2 sets, I felt that was not indicative of what Cal Poly was. But that being said, this one's such a tough one. This one's a tough one to pick. I mean, this one's 50-50, but I'm going to take Cal Poly for this one. And I'm going to get spited by Long Beach State quite a bit. Here's why. I think Cal Poly's game plan in the middle will be too much for Long Beach. I think Kendall Bashir will have a big match. Kendall Bashir, I think, has been the biggest surprise for Cal Poly, and they needed her to step up just because, honestly, losing Tommy Stockham to graduation really hurts just because she was a cornerstone player for the Mustangs. She was that program-changing player coming in from Indiana. But now that Kendall Bashir has kind of taken that outside hitter 1 position or 6 rotation player by storm, I think Cal Poly is fine in terms of that department. They have a lot of talent on that team. And honestly, they want revenge against Long Beach. This is the rubber match between the Beach and the Mustangs. And the second time these two teams played was at Mott Athletic Center, where Cal Poly swept Long Beach. Again, Long Beach will have the luxury of playing at home where Cal Poly doesn't. But I still think Cal Poly gets it done over Long Beach. It'll be close, though. I think this one will go 5. I think Cal Poly wins this one by a nose. I wouldn't be surprised if Kendall Bashir had a walk-off service ace or a walk-off booming kill. I mean, I call her the Smiling Assassin. I think it's time I give her a new nickname, and I call her K Boomin. But that's just my 2 cents. But if we get the Cal Poly team, I mean, Cal Poly and Long Beach are kind of the same, 2 sides of the same coin. If they get one side of their team that's not the good side, they will for sure lose. For example, if Long Beach gets the Long Beach team that beat Hawaii at Hawaii, that beat UC Davis on its senior night, they can win this one. But if Cal Poly gets if they get the version of the Cal Poly team that beat Long Beach State at Mott Athletic Center, the team that beat Hawaii, the team that beat Utah, the team that beat UC Santa Barbara the first go around, I think Cal Poly can definitely win. But I got Cal Poly. I know that's not – I hate to have to ever pick Cal Poly. I mean, but honestly, I think Cal Poly is slightly better than Long Beach. And then my final will be all chalk. It'll be Davis versus Cal Poly. It's the rubber match between these two, as their only meeting saw Cal Poly take down UC Davis in 4 at Mott Athletic Center. This time around, it's going to be an interesting matchup. But in the end, I have Cal Poly beating UC Davis in the Big West Conference Championship final. Here's why. I think Davis is a good team, but I think the matchup between Cal Poly is a better matchup for the Mustangs. I think Cal Poly matches up well against UC Davis, but they have to get past Long Beach State first, and I think it's going to be no easy feat. So, but I think with players like Kendall Bashir, Chloe Lelouge, Emmy Bolus is kind of that cornerstone setter that they've had for heaven knows how long. I think this is Cal Poly's moment to shine. Cal Poly was selected to be one of the top teams in the Big West Conference. I think they were in the preseason poll. They were chosen to finish second, just behind Hawaii. So I think Cal Poly is going to prove to everyone that they deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. And it does me no good to have to pick against UC Davis because, look, I want Davis to make history. I want them to make the NCAA tournament for the first time in its program's history. I want them to win the Big West Conference Championship because last year they came oh so close to make it to the conference championship match. It's just that they were up 8-5 in set 5 against Hawaii last year, and then everything just went the other direction and went Hawaii's way, and Hawaii wound up outlasting them in a 5-setter. But I think this is the year Cal Poly is going to deny Davis a spot in the NCAA tournament. And again, it sucks to see Davis. It sucks for me to have to pick against Davis. And it sucks for me to have to pick against Long Beach State. But I think Cal Poly has the most complete roster of all of these Big West Conference teams. And again, that's no disrespect to any of these coaches or players. I just think Cal Poly has just looked and played the part. I know they had the bad match against UC Irvine, but I just feel that they got that bad match out of the way and they can only go up from here. So give me Cal Poly to win this Big West Conference Championship. All right, that is going to do it for who I have winning. Like I said, who I have winning the Big West Conference Championship. First round, I have Santa Barbara and Long Beach advancing. And then in the semifinals, I have Davis and Cal Poly advancing. And then in the championship match, I have Cal Poly defeating UC Davis in the championship match. But now watch the final actually be Long Beach State versus UC Santa Barbara. That would be the ultimate slap in the face for me, but I digress. Anyway, that's my predictions for the Big West Conference Championship, and that will fully conclude the NCAA women's volleyball portion of this show. Except there is the NCAA women's volleyball Division III tournament. I know Division III isn't as glamorous, but I do want to make note of that just because the Division II bracket was just released. But Division III, I want to say that's in the Elite 8, and that's going to be on Wednesday. So your final 8 or your Elite 8 is as follows: East Texas Baptist against Berry. For those that don't know, the number one, the seeds all get rearranged when it comes to the Elite 8. So East Texas Baptist is the number 1 seed. Berry is now the 8 seed. Wisconsin Oshkosh is the number 2 seed. Calvin is the 7 seed. Colby is the 3 seed. Trinity, Texas is the 6 seed. And then Laverne is the 4 seed. And Wisconsin Eau Claire is the 5 seed. You're probably wondering where Juniata is. Well, Juniata, I think, got bounced in round 1, if not round 2. Regardless, Juniata will not be four-peating. So I'm sorry to Juniata fans. I'm sorry to Heather Pavlik, but that's just how it is. Anyway, so that is pretty much that for the Division III tournament. I don't want to go too much because I'm already almost an hour and 20 minutes into this thing. So the Division III bracket was just released. And I imagine the NAI tournament is either underway or is nearing its end. So we'll see what happens with that as well. So that'll do it for all the other NCAA and NAI women's volleyball tournaments. I'll promise you all I'll try to get to NJCAA and 3C2A, but we're already an hour and 20 minutes into this thing. So anyway, I do want to talk some high school girls volleyball. So on Friday and on Saturday, I got to attend the CIF State girls volleyball finals. Friday, I got to attend the Division I matchup between Wood Creek and Harvard Westlake. I will also just say that every CIF State girls volleyball final was a sweep. Every final from the open division all the way down to Division 5 was a sweep. So if you were hoping for a little bit more of a dramatic match, this wasn't the place for you. But Wood Creek Harvard Westlake was a fun little matchup. Harvard Westlake wound up winning the match in 3, 25-22, 25-14, and 25-17. It's Harvard Westlake's first state championship since 2021, when Natalie Regan, formerly known as Natalie Morgan, who's now coaching at Long Beach State, wound up winning a state championship. And I also want to say that this is Harvard Westlake's 5th state championship from what I was told, but don't take my word for it. Anyway, Harvard Westlake was led by Kylie Parker, who had 14 kills, Sophia Cotter added 11 kills, Maya Stillwell, who is bound for Northwestern, she had 6 kills to go along with 4 blocks. I got to interview her after the match, and I didn't even know that there was a post-game press conference after this. So I got to attend as a member of the media, official member of the media, and I didn't know there was such thing as a post-game press. I know they did post-game press conferences. It sucks that the losing team has to do a post-game press conference, but I guess that's just how it is and whatnot. And I guess CIF just needed a statement from the winning team and losing team and whatnot. And look, and I get it. Like, no one wants to be interviewed after a loss, but I guess this teaches some of the Division I or the college-bound players to have to deal with interviews and whatnot, and what they're going to be doing once they get into college. So whether it's the junior college route or the NCAA or NAI route. Anyway, Wood Creek, they only had 24 kills on the night. They only hit 45. They were led by Caitlin Hull, who had 7 kills. Well, they got 5 kills from Maya Taylor, Liliana Saldivar, and Kennedy Hull. But it wasn't enough, as Harvard Westlake outdug them 54-37. They also Wood Creek actually outblocked them by 1, but only by 1. Wood Creek had 4 aces to only 3 service errors, while Harvard Westlake had 7 aces to 5 service errors. They also got 5 aces from libero Ashley Sakanju, who I thought was maybe one of the best liberos I've seen in a championship match like that. And it's really incredible on what happened and how she was able to win that. So she had, I think the last 3 points for Harvard Westlake were service aces from Sakanju. So a great win for Harvard Westlake under first-year head coach London Weejay, even though she's coached for longer than that. So how Harvard Westlake got to the final was pretty impressive, as Harvard Westlake actually took down Santa Margarita, who I thought was going to beat Harvard Westlake in the SoCal regional final. But unfortunately for my prediction, it didn't come true. But yeah, that's a good win for Harvard Westlake. I feel this past week was kind of the week that Harvard Westlake really needed to prove themselves, and I thought they really did. I thought they hadn't really had too many big-time wins, but they didn't have any bad losses. I know the previous week they went 5 with the likes of Long Beach Poly and Bishop Montgomery, but I think those matches actually prepared them. And if you saw the post-game press conference that I posted, I think that I would go as far as to say that if they don't go 5 with Bishop Montgomery or Long Beach Poly, I don't know if they win that one. So we'll never know on what Santa Margarita team came to that match. Maybe it was just an off night for Santa Margarita, but overall, it was Harvard Westlake's time to shine, and they were able to win. So a great win and a great way to cap off the season for Harvard Westlake, who made the CIF Southern Section Division I cut, who wound up winning a tournament. I think it was the Lakewood Molten Classic. I'm not 100% sure about that, so don't quote me on that. So, yeah, Morgan Weejay just had herself an amazing, amazing first year. And I think Morgan Weejay is going to bring this Harvard Westlake team to greater lengths. I think this Harvard Westlake team is going to be special going forward because they returned quite a bit of players. So keep an eye on Harvard Westlake. And then for Wood Creek, look, I don't want to say this to be this type of guy, but I think that they needed to win that first set. If they won that first set, I think they would have been able to make it a little bit more interesting. But I think their youth and inexperience kind of showed. They have the athleticism, and it showed in their win over James Logan. But I just feel that Harvard Westlake just outdid them in pretty much most of the categories not named blocking. So there you have it. All right, but that is that right there for the CIF State Division I final. Now for the Open Division final. Oh, man, if you had Modern Day Rockwell or Rockland on your bingo card, congrats to you. I don't think anyone had Rockland and Modern Day facing off in the state championship. So if you all remember, last week I predicted Sierra Canyon and Archbishop Mitty to make the final. That was a hard miss. So Modern Day took down Sierra Canyon in 4 at Sierra Canyon, which I did not predict. I honestly would have never seen this coming, especially since after seeing Sierra Canyon, they meshed really well with one another. And winning on the road is so tough. Sierra Canyon is a really tough place to win at, and Sierra Canyon has a lot of talent on their team, mainly juniors. They do have a couple seniors on their team in that starting lineup of theirs. But honestly, Modern Day winning that one was just very impressive. The fact that they got big matches from Laylee Ostavar and Wesley Matavau, among others, was just huge. But I think the stunner of the regional finals in the Open Division goes to Rockland. They took down Archbishop Mitty in 5, which I thought was very impressive. Now, that being said, if you know who Rockland's coach is, it's Brett Almanzon Cesar. Probably butchered that name. But if you remember who he is actually the former Archbishop Mitty coach. So honestly, it's not really a surprise now that you think about it, but I got to give it up to Coach Brett. He really had Rockland prepared against Archbishop Mitty. I think everyone can vouch for me and say that they pretty much had Archbishop Mitty advancing to the state championship because Archbishop Mitty was just probably the best Northern California team and is probably the best Northern California team on paper when you compare the two. And then for Rockland, for them to go on the road to pull off that win is just pretty darn impressive, if you ask me. So got to give kudos to Rockland. Unfortunately for Rockland, Modern Day wound up taking down Rockland in straight sets. First set, Rockland, I hate to say this, they got taken to the shed. The second set, Modern Day was down by as many as 6. They were down 12-6. I felt that Rockland was going to make this a match, and then Modern Day just started getting hot when it mattered most. Even though they kept following their successes with, like, errors and whatnot, like every time Modern Day built momentum, it would always just be followed up with either a service error or hitting error or any sort of error in particular. But Modern Day was able to turn around, win set 2, 25-22. That was the de facto set right there for Rockland. If Rockland wins that second set, it's a whole new ball game. Modern Day is kind of flustered. Rockland is feeling a little bit more confident. But being down 0-2 in the state championship is not ideal. And then the third set was pretty much mostly Modern Day. I mean, Rockland did have a few leads here and there, but honestly for me, Modern Day just took over. Laylee Ostavar was her. And I just feel that Rockland just did not have an answer for Laylee Ostavar. In the end, Ostavar was the one that put down the match clinching kill as Modern Day took that third set 25-18. Ostavar finished with 15 kills and she had 9 digs. Wesley Matavau added 11 kills and 8 digs, and then they also got 6 kills from Addison Cody, who I thought played impressive, as well as other players like Emma Kingston and J.L. Smith. Smith, I thought, was an unsung hero. She had a bunch of her points although it doesn't show it, most of her points were key points in that second set. And if she doesn't come up with those big plays down the stretch, I don't know if Mater Dei takes that second set. But JL Smith is one of the reasons why Mater Dei rallied back to win that second set. Then for Rockland, they were led by Gianna Bogan, who had 9 kills. They also had 5 kills each from Sydney Jones and Riley Hines. Rockland hit under 100, while Mater Dei hit 341, which is mind-boggling if you ask me. I mean, I will say this for Rockland. Their biggest glaring department was only 22 digs on the night. I mean, they could not dig Layli Ostavar. They could not dig any middle blocker that Mater Dei threw at the net. They cannot dig Wesley Mataval. They cannot dig Shua Adafemiwa. They couldn't dig anybody. And it sucks just because you need to play that championship level defense in that type of match against that type of opponent. But Mater Dei just really proved themselves. They will finish as the number 2 team in the nation. Byron Nelson was the team that wound up winning their state championship in this great state of Texas. So they finished a perfect, I think it was 42-0, and they are going to be the national champion, which this will be the second straight year that Byron Nelson will be finishing as the national champion. So massive kudos to them. I bet you Mater Dei, like I said, they'll be the second team in the nation finishing up at that. And then Sierra Canyon will probably be the 3rd best team in the nation, and so on and so forth. But overall, that is pretty much that for the high school girls volleyball portion of the show. Look, it was a fun season. I'm glad I got to support most of these up-and-coming athletes, especially Layli Ostavar. I'll be seeing her at USC. I promise you all that I should be going to more USC matches in the future. It'll be tough, but I'm sure I'll be able to catch Layli at a few USC women's volleyball matches. So this isn't the end of me seeing her volleyball career. So we shall see. And now that's pretty much it for the high school girls volleyball side of things. So we're going to close off the episode by talking a little NCAA men's volleyball. So the NCAA men's volleyball season is right around the corner, not too far away. There's going to be an NIL tournament happening on February 19th and the 20th at the Honda Center. And 3 teams have been confirmed to partake in this NIL tournament: Long Beach State, UCLA, and Hawaii. But the big question is, who is the 4th team that will be partaking in the NIL tournament? And does USA Volleyball have a hand in this, since the 2028 Olympics will be playing in Los Angeles? The first team that I thought of who is pretty much the final team of this tournament, I imagine it's a 4-team tournament. It's going to be a semifinal format, and then the 2 teams will play for 3rd place, and then the 2 teams will face each other in the championship the following day. I imagine this 4th team is USC, and here's why. It's not UC Irvine. They just released their schedule. They don't have any plans of playing in the NIL tournament. I think they are going to be in BYU that weekend. It's also not going to be BYU, like I mentioned, not going to be Pepperdine. They just released their schedule. So USC, who has yet to release their schedule, they are the most logical choice. And I imagine it's going to be 2 MPSF teams and 2 Big West Conference teams. I feel that's the most logical choice, because USC was pretty darn good last year, and they do return most of their star players this year. It's just that I think can they be on the level of Long Beach State, Hawaii, and UCLA? That's my big thing right there. And I heard USC was kind of dinged up to start the season, but I think they'll be fine once season rolls around. They still have a couple months to get fully healthy, and I see big things ahead for USC. You got to remember that USC was the first 2 out in terms of missing the NCAA or National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament from last year. So I think for USC, they should be the 4th team. I can't imagine another team. I highly doubt it's going to be a team from from out of California. Because Loyola also has released their schedule. They're not confirmed to be in the NIL tournament. Ohio State, I don't think will be in it. So I imagine it's got to be a really good team, and I imagine it's going to be from California. I know Hawaii isn't from California, but it makes so much sense for them to partake in this tournament just because to boost their strength of schedule. And you also got to remember that USC needs all the good matches that it can get just because USC, the MPSF is going to be really loaded. Like there's going to be more teams partaking in the MPSF, and I think it's going to be hindering some schedules. But one little matchup or one series that it's not going to hinder is USC UCLA. That those two are still going to play each other twice, and then SC also will be hosting Stanford twice for the second straight year, which I think is pretty cool. I wonder why. I thought Stanford would be hosting twice this year, but maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I missed something. But either way, that is pretty much going to do it when it comes to that little bit of news. Who do you think will be partaking in the NIL tournament? Who's going to be the final team to be in the NIL tournament? And before we sign on off, I do got to give an update on Texas A&M. Texas is up 2-1, and they are up in set 4, 22-16. So we're going to get Texas-Kentucky round 2 in the SEC championship. So if you're a fan of Texas and Kentucky in terms of volleyball, you're going to love that. So that will pretty much do it for everything. Unless Texas A&M makes a massive comeback, that's pretty much going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. It means a lot. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. And shout out to, I guess I should also mention, I arrived late when it came to watching Cyprus's girls volleyball team win the CIF state championship, but they wound up winning their first CIF state title in its program's history. So kudos to them. I plan on doing a feature on them. So thank you, Jay Grover. He says, great show. Thank you. I appreciate you for tuning in. It means a lot. So for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. And do what my boy Davidson Crook said. Hit that like button if you can. It helps boost the algorithm. But I'm Teran Rodriguez signing off for another episode of Set Point on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Have a great rest of the night, everybody. Peace, and enjoy the volleyball action. Make sure you clear your plans for Sunday, Selection Sunday for the NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament.